Zen is the art of social media. Your source for Facebook tips, marketing hacks, and startup tips.
Welcome to Zen and the Art of Social Media. I'm here with special guest Ling here, who is the owner of Power Up VIP, social media marketing business. So here at Zen and the Art of Social Media, we talk about social media, we talk about Facebook, we talk about Instagram, we talk about current events that affect businesses. If you guys caught yesterday's episode, the special election edition, we talked about how different presidential candidates, whether it's Biden or Trump, whoever wins, how that will affect small to medium-sized businesses with different regulatory practices and the deficit and PPP loans and all that good stuff. So today, got a special guest on, Liana. We're going to talk about her business, and we're going to talk about Pinterest, and we're going to talk about the craziness that is Facebook right now. It is an SHIT show. So we're going to see how that's going on and get her thoughts on the disabling of massive accounts across the board. Bunch of stuff's going on. But let's just start with the basics. How are you doing today?
I'm fantastic and really happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It is a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. So your business is called Power Up Strategy.
hmm
When did you start your business?
So, I have actually been an entrepreneur in business in digital marketing for about 10 years. So, I'm old. So
You're not old.
I was doing Facebook ads when, like, actually the best thing to do was boost ads all the time. It's when we first started everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've been doing it for a while and kind of been around the block doing SEO and paid ads. But the whole time, my main focus has always been to help business owners fill their pipeline. And over
Oh,
the years,
business owners fill their pipeline.
it's really evolved to especially, with COVID, to just working with people online. So
Mm-hmm.
most of my clients are infopreneurs, coaches, have online businesses.
Why did you decide to get started in digital marketing?
Yeah. So one of the things I looked at is when I was deciding what to do, oh, what are you going to do? What type of business do you want to run? I was very, very attracted to marketing because my reasoning was if you know how to market, then you can do anything you want.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time, people say, oh, my big problem is lead generation. Actually, it's not. Your problem is obscurity. Your problem is people don't know enough people in your target market just don't know how great you are or how good your services are. And that's the problem because I think a lot of people do have a very good service or product. It's just, people just don't know about it. And when they hear about it, they say, oh, yes, I want it. And so my thought was, yes, if I can learn how to market, if I know how to get my information and my clients' information in front of the right people, then sky's the limit, right?
Sky's the limit. Great. What are some of your early milestones that you're happy to have achieved? What are some of your kind of
Wow.
big
Well,
wins?
I think one of the biggest one was actually being a full-time entrepreneur. So
Mm-hmm.
I was originally trained as a lawyer, and I actually practiced law for a couple of years as well before I became a full-on entrepreneur. And anybody who's done that career transition, going full-time is a huge deal. So I think the fact that I'm still around and doing this full time without a job
Mm-hmm.
is a huge win. So I think that that's one of the things that I would kind of just put up there and continue to put up there. I think,
Definitely.
yeah, and I mean, honestly, maybe it sounds a bit cheesy to say this, but every time I've had a client who said to me, I made a difference, to me, that's felt like a big milestone, whether it was, millions of dollars in sales or it was a couple $100 in sales. I remember the very first time I was focusing a lot on local businesses,
On local businesses.
and one of them said to me, Liana, you're like our guardian angel. Like we literally don't know because they
Wow.
didn't know what to do because a lot of businesses go on referrals and then all of a sudden they all dry up
Mm-hmm.
and they don't know what to do. So just having somebody come in, even just to run their Google ads or Facebook ads or something like that,
Sure.
just to start their pipeline up can be a big difference. And so those types of memories just really stick more with me as opposed to, oh, we did this, I just put out a $6 million case study and that all
Hmm.
sounds great. And that was wonderful. But to me, it's about whether, you can actually help your clients. So that all those memories kind of, I've been really privileged to be able to help and work with a lot of different small businesses and online businesses too. So
That's awesome. I'm sure it really feels good to actually make a difference because, as you know, and as many people in the digital marketing sphere understand, a lot of businesses, especially retail establishments, they don't know about digital marketing. They don't know how to do
no,
lead generation. They don't know how to get people in the door other than old school methods, door hangers, putting flyers on your windshield, and that stuff just doesn't work like it used to. And
yeah,
so having a digital presence, developing your brand, finding who your target audience is, and running campaigns, that's vital. But small
it
businesses
is.
don't have that on deck as kind of like what they learned when they went to business administration school or whatnot. And they can run the business, or maybe they just started on hope and a lottery ticket, but then there
Mhm.
comes that time where it's like, okay, especially like you mentioned, during current times, everyone's on lockdown, you have to have a digital presence. That
Yeah,
pivot is so important.
yeah. The foot traffic's gone, right? You
Hmm.
don't have that. Where I'm in Canada, we have seasonality. So definitely in the winter, I think local businesses are used to having the downtime in sort of walking traffic, but still,
Right.
you're used to having that really big summer, right? Where we have street parties and a lot of foot traffic and just like a lot of stuff happening. And it's a very different world. So
Definitely. From what I hear, you have some experience advertising on Pinterest.
I do. Yeah. I really like Pinterest. It's sort of like the forgotten child almost.
The forgotten
Like,
child.
because Facebook, let's be honest here. Facebook's sexy, right? Facebook ads are
Mhm.
sexy. 99% of the people who come to me first are thinking, I need Facebook ads. And that may not
Sure.
be true all the time, right? And then you've got Google, who is sort of, I don't know, I see Google almost like the grandfather. Like Google's been there from the beginning,
Yeah, they
still
have.
here, still going, it's kind of like the foundation. And then you have these other networks that, yeah, it's sort of like the black sheep of the family, maybe, or like the artistic child that people don't all quite get. And it's quietly driving a ton of traffic to people's sites.
What would
So,
you say is an example of someone that comes to you and says, I want Facebook ads, but you're like, actually, Pinterest would serve you better?
yeah, that's a great question. So there's two ways I look at that. Number one, I want to look at where the traffic's coming from already. Some people who have a Pinterest account and are not even paying attention to even the few pins that they pin. I had one client came to me and she actually then started to take a look at the analytics and realized what a big chunk was coming from Pinterest and
Hmm.
didn't even know that Pinterest had ads either. So that's low hanging fruit. I would
Sure.
say, even if you don't have a big presence on Pinterest, check your analytics. You may be getting a lot of traffic because other people may be pinning stuff to your blog or your site and you don't even realize it yet. So
Sure.
that's a really good indicator. I look at that first. Where are you getting your traffic from?
Hmm.
And then you can decide,
Where are
hey,
you getting the
let's
traffic?
amplify it. Because to me, paid traffic amplifies what you already have. It's
Yeah,
not, it's
it's a
not
good
some
point.
magic wand, right? It's, but it's what
Right.
you already have. So that's the first one. Number two is, and I tend to recommend Pinterest as well to people who are in more of a consumer brand.
Hmm.
It can sort of work in B2B, but it's a bit harder.
Right.
Um,
That makes
and
sense.
also if, we look at it, we, okay, like, do you have enough budget to do Facebook and Pinterest? One of the things with Pinterest is, and this is why I think a lot of people just kind of set it aside, is because it doesn't work as fast. You and I
Takes a
know,
longer investment of
yeah,
time.
you can put a Facebook ad up. You could, if your offer is good, you could probably get sales within the week, right?
Yeah.
Pinterest takes a lot longer to optimize, like about, you need to have your pins up for like at least about a month, like, and just
Really?
just leave it up there. And it just takes a lot longer to optimize. But so there's pros and cons with Pinterest. Number one, it takes longer. Number two, it's, they're coming along. They're not as advanced as Google and Facebook are, just in terms of how the ads manager and everything works in the back end, but they are coming along. So it's becoming more of a pro. And another pro, which doesn't happen as much with Google and Facebook, is when you turn off one of your ads, it's still there because you are using pins on your board in your ads. So oftentimes, once you have momentum, if you turn off the ad, it probably will still keep bringing in leads for you. Even though you're not sending any more money. Whereas Facebook and Google, a lot of times you turn it off, you turn off your YouTube ad, your Facebook ad, and then the traffic just dries up.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things is they just, it just has really good staying power as well. Also, if the brand has very good visuals, so Pinterest is very, very visual.
Just like
Okay.
Instagram. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So if you have a brand that just you can describe it in a very visual way,
Hmm.
that's also probably a really good indicator you should be on Pinterest. But really, I mean, Pinterest does have stats about how loans, like finance, works there as well.
Right.
So I think it's just about coming up with the right angle,
What would you
as
say
well.
is an example of maybe a couple of industries that benefit from Pinterest ads?
Yes, there are men on it. It's still predominantly women. It just is in my experience, right? And so I'm not
Sure.
saying it's not possible, but in general, when you look at brands like anything to do with events and weddings and travel, those all work really
Weddings
well.
and travel. That
Probably
makes sense.
because it's so visual, right? I mean, there's so much creativity you can kind of put in there.
So
Anything to
maybe
do,
like a
yeah,
wedding photographer
yeah,
would probably make a lot of bank on Pinterest.
invitations,
Yeah.
anything that you would buy for if you're an event planner, maybe you could, because you could be having all these, because what people do is Pinterest is actually a search engine, and then what they do is they save stuff to, it's almost like a wish list. So if I'm getting married, I will probably go onto Pinterest, and I'm going to be making boards of like dresses I like
That
and
makes sense.
flowers and colors and things like that. And so if you can use those types of images, you will probably work really well on Pinterest. Self-development, if you can make it visually appealing, like weight loss, for example, anything to do, if you can also show it as a how-to. So makeup,
And tell
which
me
really is
about this because
skincare.
I've never actually advertised on Pinterest before.
Mhm.
So those of us in the digital marketing sphere who have run ads on Facebook or have like, what I do, I'm a Facebook policy specialist and help people decodify Facebook when ads are disapproved. And I'll tell you, some of my clients that get that on the regular are people that are in the weight loss niche. And that is such a touchy thing. Facebook doesn't want to see those personal attributes called out.
Mhm.
Does Pinterest have anything like that? Are they as prickly when it comes to things like that in such industries like weight loss?
Yeah. They also have rules
Okay.
about that. They also, and obviously they have rules about not putting up deceptive offers. I mean, just the normal
Hmm.
standard stuff I think most networks have. They also have rules about not having, like, similar to Facebook and Google, they don't want you to put links that redirect, because again, nobody likes affiliate marketers, right?
Sure.
But they are not as draconian, you might want to say, as Facebook.
Draconian.
Um, One of the things that I have an agency rep over there, so that if anybody's watching and they have an agency or they're spending more than $100 a day, you should reach out and see if you can get a rep assigned to you, because Pinterest is hands down the friendliest people I have ever worked
Really?
with.
They're
Like,
friendly.
they sound like Pinterest. I pick up the
They
phone and
sound
they're
like
like,
Pinterest.
"Hi, it's you from Pinterest." Like, it just feels so Pinteresty all
It's your
around.
board from Pinterest for the human
Yes.
personality.
They're
How can I help?
so nice. For the first couple campaigns, because I have agency status, they actually created ads for us,
Wow.
the creatives, and
They
gave me the
created
Photoshop
ads
files and
for you.
everything in a very beautiful deck that
That's
tells
amazing.
you a display. I mean, yeah, who does that, right? And they also will pre-approve pins too. So for the weight loss area, like, I created a bunch of ads. Now, obviously, they don't guarantee that they're going to get approved, but I'm able to send it in, and they'll tell me whether it's probably likely you'll be approved or not, and tell me where they think I should actually change stuff. Again, I don't see Google doing that. And I think you can
So they give you advice
maybe,
on how to make it better.
yeah, I think
Really?
maybe you can get that on Facebook with like a tier one rep or something. I don't know.
No,
Okay.
you're not going to get that on Facebook. And I can tell
Yeah.
you because I work there. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to do some googling on the intranet and try to see if anyone else is giving advice. But as far as advice or help on how to optimize your results from your
Mhm.
ads, Facebook doesn't really provide that. If you look at the Facebook Blueprint series, where it's the online courses that are free that Facebook offers the public, that is more of like, how do you create a carousel ad, not
Mhm.
how do you get conversions using Facebook? Big
Right.
difference. So that's
Yeah.
awesome. Pinterest has that.
Yeah.
That's
So they have,
phenomenal.
I know, I had to pinch myself. Is this real? So those are the pros when you can actually work with them. Again, you do, I would not make it your main source yet. I still think Facebook and YouTube, Google, still think they're really good at finding buyers. So I would recommend if you have a solid funnel and then you want to add on Pinterest to it, because like I said, it can take longer. You do need to wait longer, and you need to have more of a tolerance for, having your CPA go up higher. Again, just because it just takes a while and you have to try a bunch of different things to see what hits. And so some people walk away from it saying, well, I never got it to work. Is because it takes more work to,
Takes more time.
to
Yeah.
optimize it. But when it does, it's awesome. Right. So,
Sweet.
yeah, it's interesting too, because I've taken Facebook campaigns and I've basically run the same offers on Pinterest. And what I found is, yeah, they don't always work. Like I even had one where the campaign that didn't work on Facebook ended up working on Pinterest, and then vice versa. No
That's
reason
very
why.
interesting.
Very similar targeting. It just didn't translate as well, I think, with the user on there. But there are buyers on Pinterest. Pinterest itself, like I said, has a ton of stats as well to help you figure out what are their buying habits.
Hmm.
And yeah, but you do have to be very creative.
So
So
let
if,
me
again, if you,
ask you
yeah,
one last question about Pinterest, and thanks so
yeah,
much for sharing all this.
sure.
So, because I'm a Facebook guy, I'm not a Pinterest guy. Is that a thing? Um, what are 3 tips you would have for someone just getting started advertising on Pinterest?
Okay. Just if you're getting started, number one, as I said, I recommend you start with a funnel that's already proven. I wouldn't use it to test out a brand new offer. Okay.
Okay,
Number two, set up your expectations for the long term. So make sure it's your secondary source, have a primary source running, and make sure it's your secondary source of bringing in leads, so that you have the flexibility to test. Right? Number three is have fun, because Pinterest is just, you can be so creative about it.
hmm,
You can, try different images and kind of different angles to it. And I feel like in any type of social media networking and advertising, you do have to have kind of some fun and joy in it. And it really does come
sure.
across if you don't.
The energy goes across
So
to the customers, definitely.
yeah, exactly. So just have fun with it too. Like, and have fun trying out different images and different colors and different, really get immersed in that type of a process. And then I think you'll come out at the other end much better, and you'll be able to figure out better, like what's going to work on there. Just a bonus tip, I would say, just whenever you're advertising on any type of social network, what you want to do is you really want to understand how people naturally use it and make sure your ads fit with that. So create a Pinterest account for yourself, start saving stuff on boards just so you can understand
The
the feel
process.
of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing on Facebook, same thing on TikTok. Before I started doing it on TikTok, I spent a lot of time just looking things over, looking for trends. Do that on Pinterest. Look for trends, see what other people are doing in this space, do some research there so you don't stick out like a sore thumb sort of thing when you get into the platform.
That makes sense because, the best ads are the ones that are phrased in ways that your audience is already using. And if you're so foreign to that, it's going to be a bigger obstacle getting started.
Yes.
So, speaking
Yeah.
of obstacles, dun dun dun, let's talk
Mm.
about Facebook.
Yes.
Facebook, the source of joy and sorrow for millions of people across the world for many different reasons. Now, one thing that I think is left out of public discussions, and I've said this before on my podcast, but a lot of times when we talk about Facebook, we're consumer oriented. We're talking about, the privacy issues. We're talking about how consumers are being negatively affected by Facebook. But I think what hasn't really been addressed is the people that support their families running Facebook ads and the marketers. And the fact is when Facebook changes something in their algorithm or they change something in their policies, this affects hundreds of thousands of advertisers across the world and their ability to put food on the table. And so right now there is a huge issue going on, and I've heard it from multiple sources. I haven't had any issues with this myself, but I'm kind of the policy guy, so my stuff's always in spec. But I've heard that Facebook right now is across the board disabling a bunch of ad accounts like everywhere. Have you heard that as well?
Yes, I have. I have and experienced it too. So yeah, definitely. It's something that if you're a seasoned Facebook advertiser, it basically happens every year around this time. And we have noticed trends where it's an election year, obviously. So it's something that, yeah, that we expect. And as I said, if you're seasoned, you know it's coming. So it's not as big of a shock. Whereas I can understand for a brand new person, yeah, it's very shocking.
Yeah, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories that are going on about why
Mhm.
this is happening. It's because of this, it's because of that. Mark Zuckerberg's a robot, all these other different things that people are saying. And it's really hard, I think, for a lot of people that that is their main source of income for how they
Mhm.
pay their rent or their mortgage or their property taxes. And
Mhm.
then all of a sudden, their ad account's frozen, their income is stuck.
Mhm.
Their first reaction is, Facebook's attacking me personally. It's a personal issue.
Yes.
Facebook's got me on their blacklist and they're targeting me. But in the reality, it's not personal. Facebook's too big to make it personal. It's automations that they're creating. And
Mhm.
so I can definitely share from my experience working in ads and in tech at Facebook. What happens often around holiday seasons is there's new automations that are being run by the engineers in Menlo Park that create both the code for Facebook that keeps Facebook.com online and also the policy flags. So they don't test it enough in a sandbox environment where it's a virtual simulation. Their testing usually involves rolling it out to segments of the population, the Northwest or the South or, the Midwest. Let's see how 10,000 advertisers deal with this automation. So now you have 3,000 people with no explanation having their ad accounts disabled, thinking Facebook's got it out for me, when in fact it's Facebook itself working its way through its own kinks and bugs.
Mhm.
Unfortunately, kind of the casualty of that is that people get stuck in that. So hopefully
Mhm.
we can ride this out.
Yes. I think I think part of it is because I can understand that. I mean, and if anybody has tried to program in anything at a very simple level, you'll see how many bugs there are. Look, if you do launches like the way I do, so many things go wrong when you're putting up your funnels and stuff. So you can imagine how complex it gets for Facebook. I think why there's sometimes a lot of frustration is also just because they're so opaque. Like it's
Yes.
not like you can contact somebody, especially when it was a true mistake. But maybe that's a discussion for another day. That's a pet peeve of mine. I
We
find
can
a lot of
go
them are
on
not
a long
true
list of those.
innocent. Nobody's 100% innocent when that happens to them, right? But it's just, talking to a brick wall, I think, is the
Yes.
more frustrating part versus, yeah. Anyway, that's just what I think I've observed and also kind of experienced
Yeah.
is not being able to communicate it with somebody is actually more frustrating than if, okay, this happened, great, I got it turned around, within a day or two or something. They called me, which I thought, wow, somebody called me, and he says, I'm
Yeah.
calling to apologize and say we probably won't even look at it for a month. So,
It's kind of
and
like being in a relationship with someone, boyfriend and girlfriend, and things aren't going well, but you don't know if it's definitely over yet. It's that indecision. It's that
yes,
unknown factor that's the most frustrating. If it's over, we can move
yes,
on. If we're
yes,
patching it up, let's patch up.
yes,
But it's that indecision of, oh, I don't know. No one's telling me anything.
definitely, yeah.
So, just as my quick PSA, I am a Facebook policy specialist. When Facebook does go silent and isn't providing answers on disabled ad accounts or disabled ads, feel free to reach out to me, trevorwgoodchild.com. And so I want to thank you, Lilly, for coming over here for this Zen and the Art of Social Media podcast and YouTube series. Now, if someone wanted to reach out to you for some of your services, what are the services you offer and where can they find you?
Sure. You can find me at powerupstrategy.com. And that'll have links also if you want to find me on social media and things like that. And I primarily work with infopreneurs and coaches to help them fill up their pipelines. And we do that with paid media, mostly Facebook ads and some organic. And we just started running a program for B2C, basically e-commerce companies that are at 5 million and up, where we actually have an omni-channel program specifically for those larger businesses.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thank you again for coming on and sharing
Pleasure.
about Pinterest. Definitely, this is going to be very helpful for a lot of people out there that are getting started on Pinterest or haven't even thought about it. Looks like a great option if you've already got an established funnel up and your offer taken care of. Thank you so much for joining me for Zen and the Art of Social Media podcast. Have a good one.
Zen and the Art of Social Media. Your source for Facebook tips, marketing hacks, and startup news.